Hold on, I'll be right back. Listen, I'm sorry that I'm dark chocolate. It's a tough tie to wear. It's got to be done like in natural light.
Okay, mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. Old Faithful is back. Anyway, that's Randy I'm talking to, right? You're Kurt. Sorry, my bad. I thought I didn't hear who I was talking to earlier. So, Kurt, you'll appreciate this. I have parchment paper for my kitchen over my ring light to act as a diffuser. So I do not have that annoying shiny thing on my forehead right now. Correct. I was like done with it. I was like talking to a producer I work with, and I'm like, should I buy a box diffuser? And he's like, no, dude, just get some parchment paper. Or apparently a shower curtain.
Building a better Bay Area. Moving forward, finding solutions. This is ABC7 News.
Good afternoon. I'm Karina Nova. You're watching Getting Answers live on ABC7. We're asking experts your questions every day at 3 to get answers for you in real time. Kids are heading back to school and using those school-issued devices. Today, we have a cybersecurity expert to tell us how cyber criminals are targeting kids and how to protect them. Plus, Eid is now an official school holiday in San Francisco. The importance of that move for the Arab and Muslim families in the Bay Area. But first, a new study shows 1 in 8 California children lag on routine vaccinations. Joining us live now is ABC7 News special correspondent Dr. Alok Patel. Thank you for being here.
Karina, I'm happy to be here. I wish we were talking about something else, but in addition to being a special correspondent, I'm also a pediatrician and a parent. So this topic, it's near and dear to me.
It's exactly what I was going to say. You are a pediatrician. This topic is part of your expertise. And we've talked so much about the COVID-19 vaccine, but there are a lot of other important vaccinations out there. Let's discuss those, the important ones, and the necessary vaccines kids need to get.
For sure. So even if you look at California, now every state has different vaccination requirements. If we just look at California, we look at the vaccines that are required to enter kindergarten. Let's see if I can do this off the top of my head. You have polio, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, measles, mumps, rubella, hepatitis, varicella. I got them all. That's 9.
Congrats.
And those are
that's
9. I was nervous. I was like, oh gosh, I can't mess up on live TV. But those are very, very important vaccines to prevent some very serious illnesses that we used to see kids get severely ill or die from before we had vaccines, which is why we are so passionate about talking to parents and explaining the importance. Now, Karina, here's one thing that's very interesting is a lot of parents who have questions about vaccines, who question why they're important. The reason that they are not familiar with these diseases is because vaccines did such a good job in getting them out of our communities. Most pediatricians, most physicians have never seen a case of diphtheria or polio or rubella in the developed world. We want to keep it that way.
Yeah, and that statistic, 1 in 8, does that surprise you? And how do you think we got to that point?
Well, I'm going to put some context on it. Now, I haven't had a chance to see the specific data regarding the 1 in 8 and how it was actually measured, but I did see the headline. Now, one thing we do know is that childhood vaccines have lagged during the pandemic. And some of this is because, simply put, offices were closed, schools were closed, and parents were afraid to go out to their well child checks, especially in 2020, 2021. Now, we have seen this decline even in a small percentage. So, for example, last year, there was a report that 94% of kids had their childhood vaccines entering kindergarten, down from 95%. Some people might say, hey, it's still good. That's 94%. That falls below a specific threshold that we want to keep, 95%. That 1% difference equates to about 35,000 kids entering kindergarten who are not fully vaccinated. We saw another report showing that about 400,000 less kids entered kindergarten in the 2020 to 2021 school year. That tells us that there's a lot of kids who we can't actually monitor the vaccine status of. So I think it's multifactorial, Karina. The one thing I want to make sure we don't do is blame parents and alienate them. We want to maintain a good dialogue to make sure every child is getting vaccines and every parent's questions and concerns are getting addressed.
And a simple way probably to remember to get those vaccinations and when and how and all of that would be to see the doctor for a checkup. So how often should kids be seeing their doctors for checkups?
Parents just want to follow that routine schedule, and you will be able to ask your pediatrician, your family medicine practitioner, your healthcare provider, anyone about what shots are needed. So typically you have a newborn visit, then your baby's going to go in at hopefully 1 month, 2 month, 4, 6, 9, 12, 15, 2 years, and then every year after that. And hey, you can always check in with the healthcare provider, with the public health agency and say, what vaccines does my child need at what age? You can go onto CDC's website and look at a chart of all those vaccines as well. Because you mentioned it, we want parents to remember and to be aware of the importance of this by talking to a healthcare provider. The one thing we don't want, which unfortunately happens, is to see a disease reemerge and have that be the reason that parents are asking about it. We have seen this happen with tetanus, measles, with whooping cough, and now with polio.
That was going to be my follow-up question. In London, we saw around 1 million children were offered the polio booster after the virus was found in sewage water there. Can you fill us in on that? And is that something we should be concerned about here in the U.S.?
I think we should absolutely be monitoring what is happening right now in New York State with the wastewater. And this should be a very early warning sign for anyone out there who is not up to date on their polio vaccine. We just mentioned that potentially thousands of kids are not up to date with their vaccine requirements to enter kindergarten. This could involve polio. Now, if you look back before 1955, when we had a polio vaccine available, we had up to 20 to 30,000 kids a year becoming paralyzed from polio. So this death is not the only metric here. Kids were getting severely debilitated because of it. We still see people today who have the aftershock of polio from back before we had a vaccine. We still see cases across the world as well, which is why it's so important that we protect against this. In Rockland County and Orange County in New York, the rate of vaccinations against polio for kids age 2 is about 60%. We need at least 80% to achieve herd immunity. So they definitely have some work to do over there with vaccine awareness. And I just want to make sure that all parents out there, especially right here in the Bay Area, are aware of how important that vaccine is.
Yeah, the CDC, they deployed a federal team to New York to investigate the case of polio detected there in Rockland County. What is that investigative team to? What exactly are they looking for, and what analysis are they doing, and where will that get us?
I surmise that team out there is going to be taking a look at what exactly the community has with respect to resources, what beliefs are, but also look to see if that wastewater surveillance is going to translate into anything, because that could potentially mean hundreds of people getting infected. And they want to make sure that there is enough herd immunity, enough people have their vaccines to protect against that. If we had 200 kids get exposed and infected by polio, we know at least one in that 200 will become paralyzed, and that is devastating.
Yeah, and I know some kids have anxiety, as you very well know, about getting those shots. Any advice to parents about easing the kids' minds when they know they're going to the doctor to get that vaccine, to get that shot?
Totally. And I think the first thing that parents already know without me saying anything is kids follow their parents' vibe, their parents' energy. So if parents are motivated and actually explain the importance of the shots, kids will pick up on that. Even really young kids, if you're smiling and you reward your kids. When my daughter got her childhood vaccines at age 6 months, we were clapping and gave her a sticker. She cried for a whole 7 seconds and then was like, give me my sticker. But one thing that's important with older kids especially is to explain why the child is getting a vaccine in age appropriate language. For really young kids, you can use analogies. Talk about why they're a superhero, how they're protecting their community. With older kids, you can explain what an antibody is. And with those older kids, specifically in high school, they want to know, how does this work? What is herd immunity? What is an antibody? How does my immune system work? And sometimes those analogies can also come in handy. Whether you were talking about an army building up its defense, or your immune system being a football team that stole the other team's playbook and now knows everything regarding their defense and offense.
Yeah, and I do feel like kids who got the COVID vaccine, some of them were excited to get it because there was so much anticipation. Parents explained it to them. They saw what happened to people early on, and they kind of understood the importance of that shot. So you make a very good point there. Let's move on. While we have you, we only have a few minutes left. Let's talk about monkeypox. We know there's an effort to get more vaccines. What are the infection numbers like now that you're seeing, and any progress on making those vaccines or other treatment options out there?
I think the biggest news that we heard is what came out yesterday about the new strategy to potentially, theoretically, quintuple our supply by creating a plan to have the vaccines inserted intradermally instead of subcutaneously. Translation out there, when you give a subcutaneous shot, that's going into your skin at about a 45-degree angle to go below the skin. Intradermal, about 10%, and you can use a smaller amount of the vaccine. Now, Karina, this is all based on a clinical trial from about 7 years ago showing that intradermal at 1/5 the dose produces the same antibody immune response as subcutaneous. Now, when I said theoretical, we still need to make sure that there's awareness out there so providers know how to inject this properly, and that there's plenty of equity and that there are no barriers in accessing the vaccine as well. We still need to see improvement when it comes to supply, with awareness, with contact tracing, and reaching out to vulnerable communities.
Okay. Well, Dr. Patel, thank you so much for your input on all of those topics. We always appreciate your time.
Thank you. Vaccines work.
We've seen it. Okay, we will, up next, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity in the new school year, how important it is to know exactly what your kids are looking at and what you can do. We're going to talk to an expert who's going to share some tips for parents on how to protect kids online.
Yeah.
For many kids, the start of the school year is here, and as tablets and computers become a bigger part of the classroom, now is a good time to talk about cyber criminals. Parents, we have some advice for you on how to protect your kids and their information. Joining us live now to talk about that is David Richardson, Vice President of Product at Lookout, a cloud security company. Thank you so much for being here, David.
Thanks for having me.
First, I think it's important to talk about where cyber criminals are targeting kids the most. Is it through certain apps, or can it just be through their computers in general? Where do you see the cyber criminals out there infiltrating, I guess, our computers, our tablets the most?
Yeah, so it's really where students spend their time. So it's things like social media and messaging applications, text messages. It's all of those avenues where students are spending their time that cyber criminals are looking as opportunities to communicate with students and try to trick them into clicking on a link they shouldn't click on, downloading an app they shouldn't download, providing their username and password into a source that they shouldn't provide it into, etc.
Okay, yeah. Can you go into some more detail, maybe some examples of ways that cyber criminals are targeting kids? You know, in some cases, you mentioned this, criminals, they act as though they're your child's friend, their age group, and they try to friend them. I've done stories on this with the FBI. In some cases, they pretend to be a teen, they swap pictures, and then they request money for blackmail for not releasing those photos. It's very tragic in some cases. So how do you prevent something like that from happening?
Yeah, so you need to understand that, a social media account can be created by anybody. You can upload anybody's photo, you can use anybody's name. So just because, it claims to be someone who's your age, or claims to be your teacher, or somebody that you know, it doesn't mean that it's actually them. You should confirm that they are who they say they are by really interacting with that person in person. Like, that's the best way to confirm, is to, confirm in a one-on-one conversation with someone that, okay, I'm going to friend you using this social media now, or I'm going to message you now, send them a message, confirm that they received it, and then that person is who they say they are.
Yeah, and it's so sad, these cyber criminals, they're getting more clever, and they're using new tricks and all of that, unfortunately, and they do get through to some kids and through their computers. Are they, can you talk about some of the apps, maybe perhaps, that parents should really be cautious of, maybe the ones that maybe bring in the most cyber criminals?
Yeah, so it's really, I don't want to say anything negative about these apps themselves, but it's really, it's the places where students are spending their time. So it's things like WhatsApp, where it's free for a hacker to send an unlimited number of messages to different people. And so, it's very easy, cost effective for them to go, target people. It's, it's online, all your social media apps, your, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Messenger, and whatnot. All of these are, ripe sources for, targeting students for scams or other hacking techniques.
Yeah, so pretty much all of them. How familiar should parents be with the kids' devices? The school gives it to them, and knowing those privacy settings and parental controls.
Yeah, it's really important that you know what devices your students have that has been given to them, what devices they're supposed to be using for school, what devices that they're not, and that you've configured those devices in a secure way. So some simple examples are, you really do need to keep your devices up to date. We all see these, update notifications saying, we need to reboot our phone or tablet to install an update. It's actually really important that you do that. And there's usually settings to have those updates happen automatically in the middle of the night while you sleep. But those updates contain critical fixes to problems with those devices that hackers can exploit. And so by keeping your device up to date, it really tells a hacker that they shouldn't waste their time trying to hack you. They should go try to hack somebody else who has left their device out of date and has a lot more weaknesses that can allow them to get into that device.
That's good advice. Good reason to make those updates. What about the webcams? I have one right here, and it looks like it's slid to be off. I've heard that you need to cover those up when not in use. Why is that?
Yeah, so if somebody hacks your device, they can do things like remotely turn on your webcam, remotely turn on any microphones, and they can use that to record you. They can use that material, unfortunately, to blackmail you in the future. And so, of course, there's no amount of hacking of a device that's going to allow you to get past a sticky note or a piece of tape or something that's physically covering the camera and when it's not in use.
And how important are strong passwords? It seems like it's so simple. Make the password complicated, not your birth date or not your, 1, 2, 3,
Your
4,
pet's
5.
name.
Exactly. How important are those and why?
Yeah, so, strong passwords are critically important. The problem today, we have so many accounts and we have so many different passwords that are floating around out there. And these accounts, actually, the services that we use, unfortunately, they get hacked all the time. And the usernames and passwords that are associated with them get leaked on the internet and on the dark web, and hackers have access to that information. So it's really important that you have a strong password that you can't guess. And think about, now that you have social media and other things, your pet's name is not a good factor to be in your password. That is easily guessable. The year you were born, that's not a good thing to be in your password. That is easily guessable. These are all things that can likely be looked up about you online. And it's also important that these passwords are unique because they'll be involved in breaches. And when they are involved in breaches, the attackers will attempt to reuse that password everywhere that you might have a digital presence. So they'll keep guessing service after service, and so even though it might be, one website that you used that got breached over here, they'll try to use that to get into your email account, your social media accounts, et cetera. And if you're using the same password, then they're going to be successful. They're going to be able to get access to those accounts as well.
Okay, David, if you can tell us in 30 seconds or less, what about the public Wi-Fi networks?
Yeah, public Wi-Fi networks, you should just treat that information like, don't do anything ultra sensitive on a public Wi-Fi network.
Okay, so maybe don't log into your bank account or anything like that?
Yeah, exactly. If you wouldn't feel comfortable with someone looking over your shoulder doing this, then I wouldn't do it on a public Wi-Fi account. But there is strong encryption in place these days for most websites. So it's not the same as it was a decade ago where, every single thing that you did on public Wi-Fi is being monitored. These days, there is encryption in place, but still I wouldn't trust it for, extremely sensitive operations. If, somebody was looking over your shoulder, which is probably happening in a coffee shop anyway,
Right.
Treat public Wi-Fi the same way.
All right, David Richardson, thank you so much. Lots of great information there. We appreciate your time. Up next, a major victory for Arab Muslim families in San Francisco. We'll explain the step forward the city school district just took. Today, San Francisco schools are taking a historic step forward. The Board of Education voted to recognize Eid as an official school holiday. It comes after Arab students at Wallenberg High School started a movement last year. Their petition gained over 800 signatures and inspired change. Joining us live now to talk about why this matters is Wassim Hage, a community leader with the Arab Resource and Organizing Center. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
First, tell us about the resolution that was adopted today. What does it say?
So the resolution, as it's written, means that in the 2023 to 2024 school year, Eid holiday will be recognized officially in San Francisco Unified School District, and the entire school district will get this day off. All students. It'll mean that teachers and faculty also get this day off as well. In the interim year, 2022-2023, there's going to be education efforts on behalf of the school board and school district to educate folks on Eid and our holidays.
And this all started as a petition by high school students. How important was that?
So we see kind of the student-centered and student-led approach for our organizing work and our community approaches as kind of critical. This wouldn't have gotten as far as it did without a student-centered approach, without it being student-led. Once that petition got some steam, we at the Arab Resource and Organizing Center helped craft the resolution, and the community really mobilized around it. We came out for over a year, and we've been asking for this kind of recognition for several years now, well before the pandemic. So it's really mobilizing and heartening to see this our efforts finally pay off in this way.
Yeah, and is SFUSD one of the first school districts to do this? Do you know of others in California or across the country?
We're the first in California. There are some, I believe, in New York has it, but we're definitely leading the state, and San Francisco often does. We're kind of leading education around the country and recognizing this if you're looking at it from an equity diversity lens.
And before you go, I want to ask, why is this so important to the Muslim and Arab communities? What does it mean to the families and all the kids that go to school in that district?
You should have seen it there when the night of when we finally got there. We heard the final vote happen, and sort of all the kids jumped off. The whole evening they were asking, "Are we winning? Are we winning?" It was amazing to see. So I know the whole community. We're all super enthusiastic about this. We've been asking for it for years, and to finally see us our struggle and our culture and traditions recognized is incredible for us. So we're stoked, and we thank the school board for their consideration.
Yeah, and I'm expecting a big celebration per se for next year for this holiday.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I mean, now that the kids get the day off, we might be able to get them out in the streets and celebrating.
That's great. It's good to see what young people can do, make something like this happen. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Of course, we will welcome you back next year during Eid, and you can let us know how it's going. Getting Answers continues in just a moment, but first, a reminder, you can get our live newscasts, breaking news, weather, and more with our ABC7 Bay Area streaming TV app. It's available on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Just search ABC7 Bay Area and download it.